You don't need another secret. The idea that there is a hidden formula you haven't discovered yet is false. You already wake up thinking about your goals, you already imagine the future you want, and by the end of the day you tell yourself you will start properly tomorrow. You say you are serious about your dreams, but you treat them like inspiration instead of obligation. You think clarity is missing, so you search for new strategies, new videos, new frameworks, hoping something will finally click. You believe once you find the right secret, everything will feel easier. You already know what you want. You already know what it requires at a basic level. You already know the daily actions connected to that outcome. But you keep acting as if the breakthrough is informational, not behavioral. You spend time refining the vision. You adjust the plan. You reorganize your goals. You convince yourself that preparation is progress. And when execution becomes uncomfortable, you tell yourself the system needs improvement. You believe your dream is big, but your daily standard is flexible. You talk about long-term success, but you allow short-term mood to influence what gets done. You say the dream matters, yet you let distraction borrow time from it without resistance. You think the missing piece is a method you have not learned yet. But what if the method is already clear and the problem is something you do every single day without calling it a problem? You don't lack ambition. You lack alignment between what you say you want and what you consistently enforce. And that misalignment is not dramatic. It is subtle. It happens in quiet decisions that look harmless. It happens when you delay. It happens when you soften the requirement. It happens when you protect comfort more than you protect the standard. You are not missing a secret. You are avoiding something obvious, and that avoidance is the real reason your dreams remain ideas instead of outcomes. You keep telling yourself that timing is the issue, that once your schedule clears, once your energy improves, once your environment becomes more stable, you will finally execute at the level your dream deserves. But what you are actually doing is postponing discomfort while pretending you are being strategic. You say you are waiting for the right moment. The truth is you are waiting for the moment to feel less demanding. You do not step back because you are incapable. You step back because the standard required to move forward feels heavier than you expected. And instead of adjusting yourself upward, you quietly adjust the requirement downward. You think you paused because you were tired. You paused because you allowed yourself to renegotiate the promise. The moment resistance appears, you begin a silent conversation inside your head where you justify a delay, reduce the scope, or give yourself permission to make it up later. That internal negotiation feels small. It is not small. It is decisive. Every time you dilute the standard, you send a message to yourself that your dream is optional. Not impossible. Optional. And once something becomes optional in your behavior, it slowly becomes unrealistic in your belief. You are confused because you still care. You still think about the dream. You still imagine achieving it. But imagination without enforcement creates emotional satisfaction without structural progress. You get the feeling of ambition without the cost of discipline. And over time, that feeling replaces action. You did not stop because you lack passion. You stopped because you protect comfort at the exact moment commitment is required. You negotiate when the pressure rises. You compromise when boredom sets in. You rationalize when execution becomes repetitive. You believe you are searching for a secret to make your dreams happen. But what you are really searching for is a way to avoid the rigidity that dreams demand. A dream without a fixed standard is entertainment. A dream with a fixed standard becomes responsibility. And right now, the gap between where you are and where you say you want to be is not caused by missing knowledge. It is caused by a daily habit of internal bargaining that slowly weakens the seriousness of your own vision. The cost is not immediate failure. The cost is gradual irrelevance of the dream itself. There is one law that governs whether your dreams remain imagination or become reality, and it operates every single day whether you acknowledge it or not. If your dream is emotionally important but behaviorally optional, then it will never materialize. If your dream is behaviorally mandatory, then progress becomes inevitable. This law does not respond to how inspired you feel. It does not respond to how clearly you visualize the outcome. It responds only to whether your daily actions are fixed or flexible. When your actions are flexible, your dream becomes dependent on mood. When your actions are fixed, your dream becomes dependent on repetition. If you decide that working on your goal happens only when you feel sharp, then inconsistency is guaranteed. If you decide that working on your goal happens at a predetermined time regardless of mental state, then progress begins to stabilize. The difference is not intensity. The difference is obligation. If your commitment changes when discomfort appears, then your identity adjusts to protect comfort. If your commitment remains unchanged when discomfort appears, then your identity adjusts to tolerate pressure. One direction weakens seriousness. The other strengthens it. You think your dream requires a breakthrough moment. It does not. It requires a non-negotiable pattern. Every day you treat execution as a choice, you weaken the connection between vision and action. Every day you treat execution as mandatory, you reinforce that connection. If you allow delay without consequence, then delay becomes normal. If you eliminate delay as an option, then execution becomes normal. The mind adapts to whatever pattern you reinforce. It does not care about the size of the dream. It responds to the structure of your behavior. Right now, your dream is emotionally strong but structurally weak. You feel it. You talk about it. You plan for it. But your daily system does not force alignment. That is why progress feels inconsistent. Not because the dream is unrealistic, but because your behavior is conditional. If the behavior tied to your dream is fixed, then results accumulate quietly. If the behavior tied to your dream is negotiable, then results scatter. You understand the law now. Emotional importance does not create outcomes. Behavioral enforcement does. But understanding the law does not mean you are living under it yet. There is still a gap between what you see clearly in this moment and what you will enforce tomorrow morning. You do not need inspiration to make your dreams happen. You need a structure that removes choice from the moments where you usually hesitate. The structure is not complicated. It is rigid. And that rigidity is what you have been avoiding because it eliminates your ability to negotiate. First, you assign a fixed daily time block that belongs exclusively to your dream, and that time does not move. The internal reason is priority. What has a fixed place in your day becomes real. What floats around your schedule becomes optional. The identity consequence is immediate. If you protect that time without exception, you prove that your dream is not a hobby. If you shift it whenever something more convenient appears, you confirm that comfort outranks ambition. The daily behavior is simple. At that time, you begin work whether you feel ready or not. No warm-up ritual. No waiting for clarity. You start. And the tension remains because you realize how often you previously treated that block as flexible. Second, you define a measurable output for each session, and that output never shrinks. The internal reason is accountability. Vague effort creates the illusion of progress. Specific output exposes reality. The identity consequence is sharp. Either you are someone who completes defined targets, or you are someone who works until it feels sufficient. The daily behavior is exact. You complete the predetermined amount before you stop. Not when you are tired. Not when you are bored. When the number is met. The discomfort will rise because the target does not adjust to your mood. Third, you remove distractions before the session begins instead of fighting them during execution. The internal reason is control over environment. If you rely on willpower inside chaos, you will eventually lose. The identity consequence is clarity. You are either proactive about discipline or reactive under pressure. The daily behavior is deliberate. Phone out of reach. Notifications off. Workspace prepared. No entertainment within sight. You eliminate escape routes before you need them. And the tension increases because there is no easy way out once the work begins. Fourth, you track streaks of execution without emotional commentary. The internal reason is momentum. Visible continuity reinforces seriousness. The identity consequence is weight. breaking a streak is no longer casual. It represents a fracture in your standard. The daily behavior is brief but exact. You mark the day complete only if the output was achieved at the defined level. No partial credit. No rounding up. The record becomes neutral evidence of your alignment. Fifth, you conduct a weekly review where you compare vision against execution, not intention. The internal reason is alignment. Dreams drift when they are not measured against behavior. The identity consequence is confrontation. If the week shows inconsistency, you cannot hide behind desire. The daily behavior here is scheduled reflection. You assess whether the structure was honored exactly as designed. Not whether you felt productive. Whether you complied. None of these disciplines are exciting. None of them feel like a breakthrough. That is the point. A dream becomes real through repetition that feels ordinary while it is happening. You have been searching for something dramatic when what you require is something stable. This structure does not motivate you. It restricts you. It limits your ability to delay. It eliminates your habit of internal bargaining. And if you apply it without modification, you will face an uncomfortable truth. Your dream was never waiting for a secret. It was waiting for enforcement. The tension remains because this structure leaves no room for emotional escape. You either hold it or you reveal that the dream is still optional. You have been treating your dream like a destination you hope to reach, but it is actually a mirror reflecting the strength of your identity. A dream does not test your creativity first. It tests your self-respect. Because the distance between where you are and where you want to be is crossed by daily promises, and every promise you keep or break reshapes how seriously you take yourself. You say the dream matters. That statement means nothing until your behavior proves it. Self-respect is not built by ambition. It is built by alignment. When you tell yourself you will execute at a fixed standard and you follow through without adjustment, you reinforce internal authority. When you soften the requirement, even slightly, you send a signal that your comfort is more important than your commitment. Over time, that signal becomes identity. You think discipline is about forcing yourself. It is not. It is about deciding that your word is final. When your word becomes final, negotiation disappears. When negotiation disappears, clarity increases. You stop debating whether you feel like working. You stop measuring your mood. You stop searching for motivation. You execute because that is the agreement you made with yourself. Boredom will appear. It will feel heavy. It will make the process seem repetitive and unremarkable. That is not a flaw in the system. That is confirmation that you are operating at a stable level. Excitement fades because repetition is not designed to entertain you. Repetition is designed to compound results quietly. If you interpret boredom as a reason to adjust, you break the compounding effect. If you interpret boredom as correctness, you protect it. You have been chasing intensity. Intensity feels powerful, but it fluctuates. Identity does not fluctuate when it is solid. When you lock your dream into your identity, execution stops being an event and becomes a standard. You do not rise to the level of your inspiration. You fall to the level of your enforced habits. If the habit is rigid, progress is steady. If the habit is flexible, progress is unstable. Self-respect grows when your private behavior matches your declared vision. You know the discomfort of saying you want something and then watching yourself delay it. That gap weakens trust. And once trust in yourself weakens, hesitation increases. You begin to question whether you can sustain bigger commitments because you have evidence that smaller ones were inconsistent. Quiet consistency rebuilds that trust. Every day you meet the standard exactly as defined, you strengthen internal certainty. Not emotional confidence. Structural confidence. The kind that does not need affirmation because it is supported by proof. You do not feel powerful because you are excited. You feel steady because you are reliable. Your dream does not require you to become someone dramatic. It requires you to become someone exact. Someone who keeps promises even when no one is watching. Someone who respects their own schedule. Someone who understands that repetition is not punishment, it is progress in its most honest form. Identity beats effort because effort depends on energy. Identity depends on decision. Once you decide that your dream is no longer optional behaviorally, everything changes quietly. You stop asking whether it is convenient. You stop searching for shortcuts. You execute because not executing would contradict who you are. When discipline becomes identity, resistance loses authority. Discomfort becomes background noise. Boredom becomes confirmation. And the dream that once felt distant begins to feel structured, not because it moved closer emotionally, but because your daily behavior stopped drifting. This is the lock. Not excitement. Not revelation. A decision that your word to yourself is permanent. You do not need another secret. You needed a standard that does not move. Your dream was never blocked by lack of information. It was delayed by flexible enforcement. You were inspired, but you were inconsistent. You were ambitious, but you were negotiable. And success does not respond to ambition alone. It responds to repetition at a fixed level. Now you see the pattern clearly. When execution is optional, the dream fades slowly. When execution is mandatory, the dream gains structure. The difference is not dramatic. It is daily. It is quiet. It is decided in moments where no one is watching and nothing feels urgent. You already know what must be done. You already know the time it requires. You already know the behavior attached to the outcome. The only variable left is whether your word remains stable when discomfort appears. If you hold the line, progress compounds. If you adjust the line, progress scatters. There is no hidden formula beyond that. There is no shortcut around repetition. There is no emotional state that replaces enforcement. You are no longer searching for a missing piece. You are confronting a clear choice. You either treat your dream as behaviorally mandatory, or you continue treating it as emotionally important. One creates results. The other creates imagination. You now know what was misaligned. And once you know, responsibility becomes yours.